Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning from Warsaw, Poland. My name is Damian Urbańczyk, and it is my pleasure and honor to be the host of today's meeting, which is entitled Technology Day, Colors of the Night. The weather outside here in Poland is very moody. It's raining cats and dogs, and it's a bit stormy, but we'll make sure that the atmosphere here in our studio during our conference is going to be impeccable, filled with positive emotions and useful knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to begin. And as they say, coming together is beginning. Staying together is progress, and working together is success. And this is the reason why we are so happy that you joined us here today. We hope that you're going to stay with us, and we believe that you are going to work with us. And talking about staying, please make sure that you're going to stay with us during this conference till the very end and make notes, because we prepared a short quiz for you during which you'll be able to gain amazing, very nice prizes. Of course, for those of you who will do best. Okay. So, as they say, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And it is time we took this very step with opening by Alex Liu, Managing Director, CE, Nordic and Turkey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Alex Liu, Managing Director of Dahua CEN region. Really nice to meet you guys through this virtual platform. When I was invited to make the welcome speech, I kept asking myself what I can share, what I want to share. I'm definitely not a technical expert, but of course I do know how technology important is in terms of improve people's life. Dahua is one of the major suppliers of security product and solution. Each year invests 10% of its revenue into R&D and innovation. For example, last year, like 460 million into this field. And also it has established 5 major research institutes with focus on different fields, like Big Data Institute, Cybersecurity Institute, Smart City Institute, Advanced Technology Institute, and the Central Institute. Why Dahua is so committed to innovation? Because it believes it not only can secure its sustainable growth and our partners benefit, but also innovation is the engine for the better life. But Dahua cannot do it alone. Without your support, our partners' support, no matter how good technology is, it's useless. It can only make the things better as long as it can be used in the reality. So this time, let Dahua and you, we do it together to make life better, safer, smarter, and this time more colorful. Thanks for your attention and the virtual showing.
Thank you very much for this opening. Dear viewers, as you all know, humanity went through 3 industrial revolutions, and right now we are in the middle of the 4th one. What exactly is the 4th industrial revolution, and why should we care about it? Well, first of all, the 4th industrial revolution is a fusion of advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, genetic engineering, quantum computing, and more. And as a technology, artificial intelligence has the potential, for example, to help doctors spot cancers, assist in the designs of new vaccines, help predict the weather, or automate boring tasks, such as, for example, driving or administrative work. It is very useful also when it comes to surveillance, and this is our field of expertise. Right now, it is time we gave the floor to Fanglang, Product and Solution Director, CE, Nordic and Turkey, with his presentation, AI has never been so close to us.
everyone. My name is Len from Dahua, CE and Turkey. AI, as known as artificial intelligence, has not been so close to us. It's embedded into smartphone, electronic cars, as well as video surveillance products. We are observing AI extends to the edge of IoT network, but we have no idea where is the edge of its power. With consistent investment and development, Dahua aims to provide precise, reliable, and comprehensive solutions. It's my pleasure today to be able to present you few slices of those solutions and product highlights. Video metadata is a fundamental but extremely useful feature. What is metadata? We could understand it as putting text on the video stream. It takes a snapshot of the targets and extracts their attributes for further data processing, so that the searching engine will filter away irrelevant information. And then the operator can quickly and precisely locate specific targets from a mass of objects in the video. Among the latest Dahua metadata technology, it supports 28 kinds of attributes. Meanwhile, the developing never ends. Here is an example. Appreciate my colleague, Roman Roxer. He made the testing with the other colleagues from Czech Republic and also Slovakia. Imagine you are the security manager of this facility. There is one visitor, but you have no idea about who he is. And you would like to know where he has been before and after. So you select the person from the recording, input the similarity. Afterwards, select the video channel you would like to search for. Gradually, you will get the results from intelligent server IVSS. It's also possible to track the targets no matter human or vehicles if you configure EMAP on the DSS. By browsing those thumbnails, you find out this person is very familiar with your colleagues. They participated in the training, talking with each other, work around the facility. And the most important thing is, all of this just take a couple of minutes. While PPE is crucial on construction site, with deep learning algorithms, the Dahua PPE detection technology shows the compliance of wearing personal protective equipment in the real time. Attributes like can be detected included hard hats, reflective vests, masks, glasses. It also supports a variety of clothing colors. Furthermore, it's possible to configure rules based on applications. The privacy is another crucial matter. Metadata technology makes privacy protection easier to comply with local norms. Through the 7 series network camera, equipped with deep learning algorithm, the key information, like image of the face, can be identified efficiently. At the same time, mosaic masks are applied according to requirements on site. In case of incidents or the other security demands, the authorized administration can recover the original video for further investigations. When we look into open area, for instance, plaza, stadium, or like this, the seaside, to use less cameras and cover wider view is always the goal we want to achieve. Dahua panoramic system is designed for such applications, which requires a 360 or 180-degree wide angle of view and high-speed PTZ for situational awareness. Here are 2 kinds of panoramic cameras I would like to recommend. What I like the most is the Hubble series on the top. This is the model with 8 times 4 mega sensors on the top to provide 360 full situational awareness. The PTZ at the bottom is equipped with 45 times optical zoom lens, and the illumination distance is up to 500 meters with laser modules. With its all-in-one design and AI function, such as crowd and also density analysis. It's a perfect solution to replace multiple conventional cameras, saving significant number of the installation and maintenance costs. AI is also deployed in illegal parking. The principle is, when the device detects that vehicle is driving into the prohibited area, it will take 4 pictures from the vehicle and retain the relevant information, like license plate, arriving time, and leaving time. The illegal parking rules can be set up according to different national laws and region laws. Once the prescribed parking violation time exists, the camera can be linked with an external speaker to remind the driver. Compare with dispatching guys to fire X or ambulance lay, the time is above everything in order to saving lives. Basically, we provide you 2 types of PTZ for different scenarios. On the left hand, Hunter series offers the monitoring diagram up to 200 meters. It's equipped with a 4x zoom panoramic cameras on the top and one 25x zoom PTZ. Those 2 cameras are calibrated automatically to capture overview and detailed pictures at the same time. On the right hand, 8 series PTZ cameras provides longer reach because of 40x zoom and up to 500 meters IR. Both of them support PFA, so that always present clear and focused pictures while zooming. With easy installation design, it ensures the entire installation can be completed by 1 person. How about AI technology with thermal image? Thermal camera delivers clear image in the harsh weather or the light conditions. Beyond visual detection, it expands longer range surveillance for safe border, fire detection program purposes. See how sharp and clear the image is. With cooled sensor and motorized lens, it's able to detect vehicle even in 20 kilometers away. In addition, Dahua thermal image with built-in AI algorithm not only be able to identify targets like human and vehicles, but also widely used in the maritime verticals. For example, to detect fishing boat in closed season or monitoring navigation channels. That's almost the it. It's quite happy you can watching still here. And for more information, welcome to subscribe Dahua CEN Facebook and YouTube channel. Thanks for watching again.
Thank you very much for this speech. There have been many interesting things said, but as Confucius, one of the greatest philosophers in the history of mankind, once said, "Tell me and I will forget. Show me and I may remember. Involve me and I will understand." So today we will tell, show and involve, because we want you to feel comfortable with our products. The first part is already behind us, and right now it is time for a presentation. Brace yourselves, because it's going to be a very interesting and very competitive ride. At the same time, remember that during this presentation you can use our chat to ask questions, and we will try to provide you with answers, of course, as much as the time will allow us. Also, make sure to remember as many things as possible or make notes, because as I promised before, the short quiz is coming and there are quite a few nice prizes to be won. All right, it is time we met Farhan Abdullah, technical trainer Nordic, who will cast some proverbial light and show the magic that happens at night.
Hi, I'm Farhan. I'm the technical trainer in Dahua Nordic. Today, I want to show you a little bit about why it is so important that we have a colorful image when we are talking about CCTV surveillance in the night. So colors can help us define everything, the description of the car or the person, much better. The presentation that I'm going to show you today is consisting of multiple different parts. The first part is about the full color, and then I'm going to go to the TiOC series and the Eureka series, which is our thermal series, and then there's going to be a quiz a little bit later in the show. So first of all, when we go through the full color part, what does it actually mean to us when we talk about full color? I assume you have heard it already in the industry. So there you had an example of how the colored images look at night sometimes. But many times during a regular CCTV system, it switches to black and white at night, which can be pretty good, but we are missing a lot of different details. So come on guys, we're living in the 21st century. We should be at least able to expect colored images at night, right? So one thing is, even though we might have a black and white picture sometimes, it might be that we can see some details, but all the colors are missing. As you can also see in the following video, missing colors, missing description, it is hard to solve a crime by those missing details. So as you can see, you can sometimes have a very, very clear image at the night, but still, when you don't have any colors, it's very difficult to give a proper description. And some people might have the understanding that you could just remove that filter and then everything is colorful at night. But guys, that doesn't work in real life, maybe on TV. So, first of all, in the 2018, we released the first full color camera, and this is kind of how it looks like when you take a regular camera and force it to only run in a colored mode. Because we want to see how sensitive the sensor is, because we don't want to accept the old black and white pictures anymore. We want colors, right? So at the same situation, in the evening, these recordings were at night with very, very limited light. And this is where you see our full color camera making the magic. As you can see, the description is very easy to find of all the different things that are happening. Or if there was some kind of criminal or some intruder, we'd easily be able to describe him. Or as you can see from here, we have installations out there in the market that already are running with IR mode, but they need extra illuminators. And still, let me remind you, we get black and white pictures at night. Why should we accept that? From those recordings you just saw, you could see everything was in color, right? Or from here. If you look here, you barely are able to see that there's some water here, but the whole scenario, the whole bridge, nothing is possible to you to see. With colored images, license plates can also easily be read, instead of when we look at the traditional IR camera, which overexposes or actually makes the number plate reflect that IR back so that it's not possible for us to read those number plates. So what's all the magic behind the full color camera? How come it could provide us with so clear images at night? So the first part is that we have a large aperture. Second part is that we have a very sensitive sensor. And last part is that we have an advanced processor inside the camera that changes that data from the sunlight. So first of all, the large aperture, what does it benefit with? The large aperture gives us the possibility to utilize that light that is coming, even though it's very limited, or if, as you can see from the lamppost over there, or if you go closer, you can see from the reflection over there from the truck, you can see there is a little bit of light behind me. That's enough. That's why you get those beautiful images, because it's utilizing 100% of the light that's given there, right? So, second part is the sensitivity. The sensitivity is, the sensor is the one that has to be very sensitive, because we need to grab all that light that's coming from the sensor and we need to transform it into data. So if we don't have a large enough platform, a large enough sensor, we cannot utilize that data that's coming or being processed to data. So it's the conversion, the gain from the sensor directly from the lens. As you can see, they come in a variety of ranges in the full color cameras. So then we have the image processing. Image processing is actually quite interesting, because what it actually does is it takes kind of, if you assume you have a diamond and you want to, or you have a rock, you want to turn it into a diamond, it's more or less the same way when you have image processing. We need to make sure to adjust, we need to make sure to, reduce the noise, we need to make sure to correct those damaged pixels. That's how we get a crystal clear image. It's kind of the same thing with the diamond, right? When we go over to our full color cameras, the main ranges that we have had up until now has been the 2 megapixel, which has a very sensitive sensor, as I mentioned before. But now, in order to enhance that into a 4 megapixel resolution, we want to keep the same ratio from pixel size and keeping it in the larger sensor. So that's how we can increase the resolution without losing that whole full color benefit with the colored images at night. If we look over at the most popular model in our 5 series, the 4 megapixel, we have obviously the aperture 1.0, which is a trademark for the full color cameras. Then we have the resolution. Then we have different functionalities that help us adapt to very difficult situations, like when we have strong light coming directly from the sunlight through windows and so on, so on. And we also have an SSA algorithms which adapts to the scene so that we always have a clear image. Not to forget, we also have very strong algorithms in our AI full color cameras, which help us use all that data that's coming and turning that into metadata. And not to forget, we have a lower power consumption because we have no IR. So, what other things can the 5 series full color allow us to have? First of all, we have the perimeter protection, part of the AI analytics. And then we have the object filtering, which makes it easy for us to classify if it's a person or if it's a vehicle that's triggering our analytics. Then we have the face capture function, which is very important because now that we have clear images also with very dark environments, we can still capture faces. And when we are capturing faces in color, it makes a big difference. And then we have people counting as well. If we want to use our camera for other type of analytics, no worries, you can still use the same camera instead to use it with people counting. And then we have the smart motion detection, which gives us the possibility to move even further whenever we are talking about motion detection, so that we can distinguish between, is that just a tree or branch moving, or is it a person moving? With this algorithm, it's much easier to look through all those recordings with a list and find that recording that's relevant to you. So colored images, as I said before, are very important because they give us a much better way of describing that person. We also have some models with white light, so if we're talking about completely remote locations when we have no light whatsoever, we can add a little bit of additional light directly from the camera. So as you can see here from the video, you'd be able to see a person walking in here. And since we do have a colored images, and make no mistake, the light is very limited even though it looks very lit. And from that image you can see we can describe that person much, much easier even though he's trying to hide. Imagine the description that we have right here would not have been possible at all if we had a IR camera with the white light. So over here we have a very clear way of describing him whenever we need to notify the authorities what this man wore, which shoes did he have, what about his jacket. If that would have been a black and white image, his jacket would have been one color, but as you can see, in real life it was quite different. So you can also do other functionalities like loitering detection, or as I used to call it, creep detection, more or less. Loitering detection is a feature that helps you detect if people are staying in the same area for a longer period, so that we are able to see if there's a person moving in an area where he's only supposed to be for a short period, for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, half a minute, we can detect only based on that, and not people just passing by. So in this case, it could be a parking lot if we want to protect our belongings and we want to get a notification whenever there is a person staying for a longer time. We can also do vehicle detection. So with our analytics, with our perimeter protection and object classification, we can go ahead and be able to classify that this alarm only needs to trigger when there's a human. And as you can see, the perimeter is only meant for humans and the middle one is only meant for vehicles. So, as I showed you just before, sometimes it can be very, very difficult for different analytics to do a good job. But as you can see, even though when it's very, very late and we have bushes and trees moving, it's very easy to distinguish. So let's go to our face capture. Face capture can be very difficult. We have a minimum bit of light from the right side. Since the camera is so sensitive, that's why it's very difficult to see how dark it actually is. But no worries, I have made plenty of tests. And as you can see, even with very limited light, we are able to, with the strong algorithm from Dahua, to capture a face still. And as you can see, this is quite late at night. And over here, we do have some footage. We can always go in our gallery and look for those faces that triggered our alarm during the night. So as you can see, sometimes we do have different camera manufacturers where these analytics simply seem to fail, where we get false results of people triggering the alarms. So we would rather not have functionalities like these. If they're not accurate, we are not going to react, or we're going to get tired of it. It's all those false alarms, don't bother. So when the real incident happens, we might not react to it because we get too many false alarms. But make no mistake, with Dahua's cameras, you won't have that issue. As you can see, there's no false triggering from the analytics over there. And now you're going to see that it's going to be triggering the alarm. There you go, then we have proper analytics. But just to give you an idea about how dark it was, let me try to show you. And then you'll notice this is at the exact same time. It does look as if it's complete daylight with the Dahua full color camera, but in fact it's very, very dark. To be precise, this was approximately 2:30 in the night. And as you can see, the green box around me shows that our SMD function works very well. So it detects that there's a person right there, even though with a regular camera or phone, you won't even be able to see that I'm walking around in the garden. So, does Dahua full color camera have other advantages? Yes, indeed. Because, let me remind you again, when we don't have any reflection, it's also much easier to use the camera for number plates, but not only that, also stuff like rain is not possible to see. So regularly or traditional IR camera would usually trigger motion detection many times during the night if it's raining, but not with our full color camera. I'm gonna show you an example in a minute. So, and also with the less power consumption, you could add potentially more and more cameras to that switch. And last but not least, we have the last two things. The angle of view cannot be seen because with the camera, with no IR, nobody knows what it's looking at. So for the intruder, it's going to be hard for him to hide his face. And as I said before, we do have models with the soft white light when there is completely pitch black. This was the example I was talking about when it's raining with a traditional IR camera. And this is how it looks with the full color camera. It's almost hard to believe that we even have any rain, right? But sometimes it would be nice to see how the camera reacts when it's very dark and we have a small light source to see how well the camera adapts to those light challenges. So as you can see, up in the left side, I have a competitive camera. On the right side, we have a Dahua full color camera. And the bottom left, we also have a competitive camera. To be more precise, as you can see, H company and A company from Sweden as well. So in the right-hand side and the bottom, you'll be able to see from my phone what's going on, just to give you an idea about how dark it is. There you see the lamp, which is very minimum lighting for the conditions out there. I'm wandering around, and on the bottom left camera, you can't even see anything. You don't even know if it's an animal or a person walking around, right? But at least from the two top ones, you can at least see. And if you notice on the top side, our camera still has the SMD function, which is triggering the person very, very easily. But if you noticed something right here, when I zoom in on the light source, look at how well Dahua's camera adapts to that lighting source, which would be a big challenge for a regular CCTV camera that didn't have such a high sensitivity. Even though with some other manufacturers who have the same type of sensitivity, they still are not good enough to adapt to the strong light coming from the camera. But we can do even better if we added a little bit of light, because a little bit of light goes a long way. So what we could do with a little bit of added light, we could use our full color camera together with an AI NVR, and then we can go far beyond with a more advanced analytics. So we can do face detection much better. We can do face recognition as well. So this is just an example of if we have a traditional camera capturing those faces at night, and we would like to search for people. As you can see, we get a black and white picture. We might be able to describe the guy, but if we took some of those pictures and added them to our face recognition database, then we have all the magic happening. Then we could potentially go ahead and trigger an alarm if ever that person comes. But the thing I want to point out is, whenever we have a person added, even in the black and white mode, and then go over to our full color camera, even it's night and we have added a minimum of light, we can still get different alarms triggered. So this is just a traditional lighting on a house. As you can see, it's very late. And now, right there, the camera snapshots the face, and the NVR recognizes that this was actually the same person. So we have a very, very high recognition rate due to the strong sensor and the strong ability of the AI NVR. Or if you go over here and again mix them with the full color and the AI NVR, Right here we have a colored image, and as you can see, it is still getting darker, but on the left-hand side, from one of the competitors that we have tested our cameras up against, we have a very blue image. But with our cameras, you can see that person very clearly during the day as well, triggering alarms. Or even here, when we have a person on a bicycle, we can capture those faces very, very easily. Here you go. This is how it looks like. So that was actually from our 5 series camera, but also from our 3 series camera. So in the full color range, we have the 5 series, the 2 megapixel cameras. We also have the 4 megapixel cameras with AI analytics. But you know what? At Dahua, we always like to go even further. It wouldn't be fun if we didn't have added a little bit layer of difficulty for the cameras, right? So let's try to see what we could come up with. First of all, let me point out, we had a testing report from an individual or unwillingly testing company that tests cameras from multiple different brands, which actually try to figure out how are these different analytics doing. And luckily, we came out through with the sparkling colors. We went there and had the best analytics in the low light performance. And as it says, the pixel per meter requirements was the lowest with the Dahua camera because it did the best at night. It was compared to multiple other high-end brands in the market. And as you can see, it was also priced significantly lower. So better analytics, but lower price. What's not to like about that, right? So we added a little bit of light, just to give you an example again of how dark it is. And then we took the brand A, which is a Canadian brand, and we tried to see how well it was going to do compared to our 4 megapixel camera. We also chose a 4 megapixel camera that was a low light performance camera. And just to be clear, all these tests that we did them with the same shutter speed to give everybody even grounds to compete on, right? So this is how our full color camera did with very, very limited lighting. And let me remind you about the analytics. As you can see, I enabled a loitering detection feature. That's why our camera did not detect. And as you can see, the competing camera does not have a chance whatsoever. It's very hard for it to see. And by the way, we did not set the colored mode to be fixed. We set it to automatic mode, even though the camera was so stubborn, it didn't want to change into the IR mode, so it was persisting to stay there. As you can see, during that, first of all, my loitering detection triggered, but also while I'm removing the bicycle, due to my analytics of missing object, it's also going to be triggering a missing object alarm from our full color camera. So let's try out with another brand, which is usually very, very high end, and let's see what we can compare with our full color camera. Unfortunately, they don't have any full color technology or very low light performing camera in 4 megapixel. So let's go back to the ancient models, or what to say, the older models that we were using in full HD, because we would like to go to higher resolutions so that we can get clear image also at a longer distance. But right now, they simply did not have a 4 megapixel low light performing camera. So remember, pixels are pixels per meter equals to details, but make no mistake, remember, useful pixels per meter, right? So if we go over here and have a look, you can see that there is a significantly difference in the different camera models when we chose those pictures. And as you can see from the 2 megapixel camera, comparing it with the 4 megapixel camera, there's a huge difference. This is another test we did with a full color camera. And as you can see, we have a limited amount of light, and our analytics is triggering very well. But with the competing camera, first of all, we didn't even have any analytics. Second of all, the picture is very hard to use. We can't really see anything useful in the image. We can see some individual. We can't even see if it's a male, female. At least you can see a beard there with the full color camera. But there's one thing that's quite important. With this test, I actually chose our Light Series AI camera, which is the 3249. So not even the Pro range of our AI camera, but the Light Series. First of all, it means that it's significantly cheaper than the competing brand, which our regular 4-megapixel 5 series would have been anyway. But what the benefit of it is that we could buy up till 6 pieces of these and still have a stronger analytics and a stronger picture at night with a colored mode. And the same thing we tried with the brand A from Sweden, where we chose a 5-megapixel low light performance camera. And then we tried to see if they had anything comparing. They did. So let's try to look at those images. As you can see, they don't perform that well because it's very, very blue or dark image. It looks more or less like black and white, as if it changed to IR mode, but in fact it didn't. It was in colored mode. Then let's try to switch over to our camera. The 3549 that was used here, first of all, if you notice the green box and the teal box. The green box is the smart motion detection, and then we have the teal box that is actually capturing all that metadata. So you have a much more colorful image. And as you can see, we could see the attributes of that person my colleague was talking about earlier much better with the Dahua camera already. Short sleeves, brown top, a bottom that's pants which is blue colored. And as you can see, I'm considered at middle age. I assume at some point I have to admit it, I'm not that young anymore, right? But I'm still happy, as you can see from my expression. Also, if there's a person on a bicycle, we capture the metadata, we could capture the face detection as well. But as I said, we didn't even try with our 5 series camera. We already just chose our 3 series because we thought it might be enough. And to our surprise, it was actually doing even better than the competing camera. And let me remind you, it's quite the similar story with this brand, that we could buy up to 6 of them, or even more of them, I think, if we had chosen this 5-megapixel camera from Dahua. And this is the feeling that you're left with at the end of it, when you realize that you had to sell your sports car to afford camera solutions on your house. Instead, you could have bought Dahua full-color cameras. That would have been much better, right? So finally, colors at night. So what we always say is, either we have better technology and better price, or it would be usually better technology and a significantly better price, as you could see from these slides. Better performance as well. So what could we potentially, for the similar price of one of these brands, buy? If you took those other brands and added some licenses to them from their VMSs, this would be somewhat a similar price range as our full-color camera in 3 series and our AI NVR. As I showed you before, the performance is magnificent. So sometimes people get confused. Why are you trying with Light Series AI? You know what? Sometimes it's enough. There's no need to use more force than necessary. So obviously our Pro Series and Ultra Series AI has lots of more advantages and can go much further. To give you a summary of the whole test that we did, as you can see, we had the Dahua camera to the left side. First of all, what you notice is the analytics, the intelligence is the list is much longer with the Dahua camera compared to any of our competitors. And you can see some of them don't even have any type of analytics for that price range, which was, by the way, 6 times more expensive than our 3 series. And even their motion detection is the old type of motion detection, where you don't have any type of classification. So whenever you need to scroll through, if there was some interesting or important recording to find some intruder or something in the night, you have to scroll through and like set aside all your holiday time, because it's going to take you ages, right? So, and at the bottom, you could see the price says everything, that we have a significantly better priced camera. If you notice in the middle, it has a yellow mark, $ with yellow, which is quite similar to our camera in price ranges, but we just have more analytics. And the major difference that you will notice as well is the model that we have. We have a significantly larger sensor, which utilizes that light I was talking about earlier. You can buy some cameras from the competing manufacturer with the same sensor size, but then I'd guess you'd also have to sell your house and your summer house as well. So Light AI series, what does it have exactly? It has the perimeter protection and the SMD. Let me give you a quick glimpse of how the SMD search works. As I said before, it's very easy to find those important recordings where there are people moving. Either if it's full color, if it's traditional IR cameras, it doesn't matter, as long as we have the SMD feature. And in this case, it could have been done directly from the NVR as well if we had some third-party cameras connected to it. Right here you can see every time there's a person, we have a notification direct in our list, even though when you're crawling around. So that means you can even find people trying to hide from the camera very easily, and our algorithm is very strong, will still detect that person. Last but not least, as you can see, there's a person standing very far away. It's even hard to see from here, but as you can see there, our smart motion detection was triggered, so that means he can even cover quite long ranges. So when we go over to the AI NVR and connect it with the 3 series camera, we get the face recognition, as I was talking about. But the benefits of the face recognition is that we can add people to databases, we can do searches based on persons' attributes as well. And as you can see, when we are using traditional IR light compared to full color cameras, the recognition rate for the similarity is much higher. And if you look over here, my colleague right there is actually trying to show you how it looks like in a IR mode. First of all, you'll notice when you have his face and his description, everything is overexposed. The IR is not doing such a good job. When we go over and switch to the colored mode, you'd see that there is a huge difference. So you can see 12 o'clock in the night, he's wandering around the streets, shaking the clothes and dancing around. So maybe you'll find him roaming in the streets someday. So right around now, you'd be able to see him in the colored mode as well. Oh, let me just go back. And there you go. He was using some of the white light. I didn't get to show you in the colored mode, but I think I've already got you convinced that it's very clear to see all those details in a colored mode. So which scenarios does it benefit the most? Where is it very important to use some of these kind of features? Because the most challenging scenarios for us are usually whenever we have sundown, sunset, then the light becomes a little bit lesser and lesser, and the camera is struggling into when to turn over to IR mode, and we want to make sure that we have the best quality. So those scenarios where it makes most sense would be, for instance, nightclubs. It could be restaurants. It could be amusement parks, it could be cafes, because what all those different locations have in common is that they have challenging dim light. You don't want to sit in a cafe where all the light is pointing directly at you. It doesn't feel that cozy, right? So that's why we want to make sure to have a camera that can utilize that limited amount of light, but still give us a colored description. Because make no mistake, we don't know what could happen whenever we install CCTV cameras and capture images. There could be, this could potentially save people's lives to describe the person correctly with a colored mode. We also have other scenarios where we want to make sure to have a way of notifying people, because those different locations are quite remote. There's not always people monitoring around. That could be woods, that could be or forests, or that could be parks. That could also be construction sites where there's a big problem in getting good descriptions. That could also be a parking lot. So if we could get all of that in colored mode, it would make things significantly easier for us. So because in many of those locations, it would require a guard to sit and watch all the time, because we need to make sure that if there's some type of alarm, and even though the guard does get tired, of course, if he has to sit there 24 hours, I guess that's not really legal, but I guess they will take turns, different shifts. But anyway, they could get potentially tired. But what we have to remember is their job is, first of all, to make sure to see if there is check for false alarms in the perimeter. Second of all, they need to make sure to warn intruders if there is some person walking around in an area he shouldn't be allowed to. And last but not least, usually a guard has to monitor a lot of different cameras. And at the end of that, to be able to watch all those cameras and be alert 24/7 is a tough job. And it's so tough, it ends up being a challenging process for the guard. Exactly. This is our next series of cameras, the TiOC series. So in our TiO series, we have the blue and red light, as you saw, and we also have white light. In the TiOC, the reason why it's called TiOC is because it's a 3-in-1. The 3-in-1 stands for that, first of all, it has the full color sensors. Then we have the active deterrence, which is able to warn off intruders. And then we have the artificial intelligence, which can actually filter out all those false alarms. So to break that down a little bit more, let's go to all the specifics of it. So first of all, we do have a built-in microphone, so we can have two-way talk. So we can listen to what's happening out there in the scenario, but we could also talk directly, so the guard could actually potentially talk directly to the person that now he needs to leave because he's been there too many times. I saw you last week, please leave still, so that everybody knows that this might not be a recorded audio file. Second of all, we also have the flashing red and blue light, which also is very convenient when we have remote locations. And then we have the siren, the loud noise, as you just heard. Whenever there is an alarm that triggers, we can set up a siren. And whenever there is a siren and there is an intruder, it always triggers him. And I'm going to get back to that. Last but not least, we have the AI algorithm that makes up for that PIR detector you would usually use in more traditional locations where you don't have any people watching over. So if you look at the filtering of it, it filters out humans, vehicles, and leaves out animals and leaves. This is exactly what we need so that we don't have all those false triggerings. So apart from that, it also has the one-button disarm. So if we want to control it directly from our app and want to disarm it, because now we already know that I maybe triggered it by a mistake. So I was wandering in my garden and I shouldn't have done that, or in office or a distribution center. We have one-button disarming directly from our phone. We also have it from our system from the NVR directly. We also have the audio record to push out to the phone, to the camera. So for instance, if we want to record an audio file and send it out directly to the camera, we can do that from the app. So this is kind of a recording directly from our 5-megapixel 3 series camera. Just to give you an idea about when we don't have any light whatsoever, of course the camera is going to have a hard time. So just to give you an example of how dark it is, this is how dark it was. And when the light is turned on the TiOC camera, which automatically turns on just like you would have the IR, but the good thing is whenever the light is turned on, it's easier to distinguish. And as you can see, this is how it triggers with the blue and red light. When we have the white light on the 3549, the TiOC camera, as you can see, it's much clearer. And again, repeating myself, we have a much better description. And also, the alarms are triggered very easily. As you can see, right there, the person is triggering the alarm from one side. Let's try again and see if we can get passed by the camera. Not possible, right? And at the end, let's try out the last side of it.
Knock it off. It's the third time you're trying.
So as you can see, The intruder tried 3 times, and at the last time, the guard decided, let me just tell this guy, knock it off. Seriously, we already know who you are. We have the complete description and everything about you. So, but there's something about these blue and red lights which are very important that I need to talk with you about. Because whenever we have these blue and red light flashing, it actually kind of triggers an effect in our body, right? It creates kind of an urgency. And whenever we see that, we always reflect to like, it might be an ambulance, it could be a police car, something like that. So we get alerted, all our senses are sharp, right? So this also happens to the intruder. And if we take that and combine it together with a speaker, a siren, and trigger some audio file with some guy screaming at them like leave the premises, for instance, it creates exactly the effect that we would sense if, let's assume, a dog was chasing us, or it could also be, for instance, that adrenaline that usually is triggered by the reflex. Whenever, for instance, let's assume your children are in danger, you all of a sudden get adrenaline pumping around in your body, and you get stronger, your senses are sharp. So this leaves an impact in our memory, and this leaves an impact especially for the intruder. So he will remember once he tried to intrude into an office building or a remote location. That could be many different things. And these red and blue lights were flashing, some audio file was playing. I think he'll think again about going to that location. So in our TiOC range, we have different resolutions. We have 3, 5, and 8 megapixel. We also have them in 2 different housing. But the technology that I've been going through is exactly the same for all of them. And not to forget, we also have these cameras in our HDCVI range. So over to the next part, because sometimes when it gets very dark, it's hard to see if there is anybody there. That's why we need, as you might remember this guy from movies, the special thing about this guy was that he was able to see the unseen. It was very, very hard to trick him. Whenever the movie, as you remember maybe with Arnold, as you can see, we look at it the same way. Eureka, you are here, Arnold, like the predator would usually see. So I don't know if you remember this recording. I don't know if you can see anything moving. But definitely our thermal camera sees it very clearly. It's very easy for the thermal camera to detect that there's a person hiding in those bushes. Yes, it's creepy that a person is hiding in the bush at 3 o'clock in the night, but we are talking about seeing the unseen. So it might be that we could get colored images, but when it's super dark, we don't have anything. That's why we need the Eureka series. Let me talk a little bit about the thermal advantages. Why would you choose a thermal camera? What potential difference could it make? First of all, the thermal camera detects by thermal radiation. So that means it detects directly if there's some type of person or whatever. It could potentially also be an animal, but don't worry, we have a filtering system. So that's going to filter those things out. So apart from that, it's also great for pre-warning before fire erupts. That could be, for instance, a generator that is overheating. Whenever that overheats, we want to trigger an alarm. So that's why the thermal camera is good as well. That could also be a distribution center. When you have some of those trucks, if the, for instance, those big batteries are overheating while they're charging, you'd like to trigger an alarm. That could be many different scenarios, or junkyards where the junk is sometimes self-erupting into fire. That's also where we could use it. And not to forget, we have the 24/7. So the thermal camera works 24/7. No settings needs to be changed. In traditional cameras, even in some other type of cameras, we need to be able to make different profiles that switch between day and night, but not with the thermal camera. And then some of the best part about a thermal camera is that it works in all weather. We don't have to worry about, is it sunny, is it snowing, is it raining? The thermal camera only detects by thermal radiation. That's why it's so much better. And as I said before, the accuracy is much higher when we want to detect a triggering, so that we don't have all those false triggering, as I said before. But what are the disadvantages of thermal cameras? Because there are definitely some. The disadvantage is that it's hard to recognize if that's a person, or if that's something else, or if that's a man or woman. That could be potential anything. So that's the disadvantage. Second of all, it's not possible for us to recognize who that person was or identify. And last but not least, they're expensive, right? To be honest, it's not everybody who can afford thermal cameras. Only for the more high-end solution, people would choose that. But don't worry, Eureka camera has the solution. So the Eureka series exactly is the camera that has all the functions in one. It has all the answers to your problems. So first of all, you do have tripwire analytics. So that's going to be easy since it has the filtering algorithms as well in order to only trigger whenever there's a human and not just any type of object that is moving around. That could be an animal, for instance. Apart from that, it also has the thermal fusion mode. The fusion mode, what it does is, since it has two cameras, so it's a dual sensor camera with a visual image and a thermal image, then it can combine those two so that you get a little bit of both. I have a couple of examples I want to show you guys. But the benefit of the visual part is that you don't have that bad image where you can't recognize that person's appearance or the person's face. You can detect that very easily with the visual part of it, and then the thermal sensor to actually trigger the alarms as well. So IR is possible as well. With this camera, it has IR, so it's easy for the camera to detect even when it's pitch black, but then you have an image from the camera at least. Then we have fire detection, as you saw from the video before, with very, very high response time, very fast response time. And then we also have the smoking detection. Smoking detection is actually a very important feature to have in a thermal camera, because smoking detection could, for instance, be important in a gas station. Would rather want people not smoking in a gas station, or it could be a factory when you are working with flammable fluids. There could be a ton of different locations where it wouldn't be allowed, or tobacco factories. Anything that could help out save human lives is important. That's why we use technologies to solve those things, right? And then last but not least, the things that we were missing in a thermal camera in common use would be the speaker and white light. So the white light to warn off the intruder, and then the speaker to notify the intruder that now you have triggered an alarm, now we know you're here. And whenever we have some audio file playing, usually the intruder would be alerted, as we talked about before, and would be looking out, first of all, if there's somebody else all of a sudden running towards him in terms of being alarmed. And second of all, also to trigger that reflex, as I said before. So when we go over to the tripwire and the thermal and we look at it, how does it look? What is the benefit? This is from the visual part of it. This is how it looks completely at night, and this is from the thermal image. If we just go back again, you might not have noticed that there was a person hiding back in those bushes, but make no mistake, our thermal camera already noticed that guy, and we know it far ahead. So if he's been sitting there for 2 days, freezing cold in January, no worries. We knew exactly when he came. So we can alert the authorities ahead of it. So, but what if we took the step further and combined it, as I was talking about, combine the thermal camera and the visual? How does it look? Does it benefit me? Is it better? Is it worse? Whatsoever. So let me give you an example. This is how the visual part of it looks. On the left side, it's almost hard to see that there is something over there. Maybe I just spoiled it for you guys. But when we look at our thermal camera, which is running the fusion mode, there you can see the camera already sees that there is a person right there very, very easily. So the camera is not tricked. And if you notice, regularly in a thermal image, you won't get all those small, clear details. But you get them with the fusion mode, because it combines both of them. So apart from that, if you look, whenever it's triggering from the other side, then you'll be able to get an alarm as well if some person would be hiding in those bushes. So let's look at those ranges when we are talking about the fire detection, for instance. I don't know why it says fire detection in the top, but we are talking about the tripwire intrusion zones. We have different models with different lenses, which gives you different options in terms of the distance for filtering for humans and vehicles. As you can see, for a person, the smallest lens, which is a 2mm lens, which is quite wide on the thermal side, it's 15 meters. When we talk about the 10mm, which is significantly narrower, but could detect on a longer distance of up to 75 meters. Then we have the fire detection this time, sorry. So in the fire detection, as you saw just before, look at how fast it triggers. The response time is instantly. There you go, immediately. And over here, we also have different ranges. The fire that we use as an example is 0.2 meters times 0.2 meters. That's about something like this. This is very easy for everybody to recognize the size of it. And as you can see, we also marked different sizes in there. We could trigger directly from whichever lens we choose. We have two different ways of triggering a high response and a anti-jam feature. What that does is, if there is some very, very hot source all the time and we want to distinguish if it's a fire or a hot source, then we enable the anti-jam feature. That's how we can tell the difference, and then the sensitivity is not as high as if it's high response. And as you might remember, the one frame, imagine that. One frame is all it takes in order to trigger a fire detection from a Eureka camera. So I don't know if you remember, I had a camera set up earlier, which was looking like this. And as you can see, far back there is a rule that I have drawn, but it was not possible for me with the 5449, the full color camera, to detect if there was a person. It was simply too far away. So, but you know what? What about with the thermal camera? So the thermal camera, as you just saw the teal colors, it already detected that there's a person there. So it's so much better. It detects a person much further away. That's why we have the high accuracy as I was talking about. And in this case, we were talking 30 meters. Or here, we were also talking 30 meters. But let's go over to what do competitors have in terms of these dual sensor cameras or thermal cameras, even in a light range. We thought, let's put that up to a test. We only found one competitor from each company that could be close to competing, but I wouldn't really say. I'm gonna explain why. So first of all, we had the Dahua camera, which is using a bigger sensor, and then we have a better aperture. And we're talking about the thermal side only. And then if you notice down there in the NETD value, which stands for the sensitivity, we have a higher value. It says 50 millikelvin. And then on the other camera on the right side, we have the 40 millikelvin. That should supposedly be more sensitive. But you know what? I'm not really sure that entirely is true. Because if we look at those values, it doesn't really add up, does it? Because if we go over to CCV for beginners, we learn that when we have a larger sensor and we have a large aperture or wide aperture, then we get a higher NETD value. So that means we should have a more sensitive camera. So if that's not possible with the camera that we have with a higher sensitivity, I would question that. Because if we go over and have a look, as I said before, the aperture, the higher the number is, the less energy is letting in. And in this situation, we are talking about thermal energy, but it's exactly the same as regular traditional cameras. So the lower the number is, that means 1.0 lets in 100%, just like our full color. So if it's 1.4, it's less and less. So we try to go to some of those data sheets of our competitors to figure out something's up with that number. So we took one of their Pro Series, or what to say, high-end thermal cameras. As you can see, it has a significantly higher resolution, 640 by 512, which is significantly bigger than their light series with 160. And we looked at the sensitivity of that one. That one has exactly the same 40 millikelvin with a aperture of 1.0, exactly. So if we try to measure those two numbers, over here, if you look at their light series camera with 160 times 120, that means much less pixels, less good detection, or less sensitive, I would say as well. But it has an aperture of 1.1, but with the same sensitivity. If we take those different numbers and compare them in terms of how much energy we are letting into the sensor, because our aperture is defining how much radiation or how much light, if it was regular camera, is coming into the sensor, the lens on the light series camera gets 83% of the energy down to the sensor compared to the more expensive high-end thermal camera with a higher resolution. So that means it is more sensitive than the high-end camera, right? So all in all, it leads you to this conclusion, definitely did with me, that it must be the superest deal ever to have a camera that is significantly cheaper in a light series with a lower resolution that is more sensitive than a better camera with a higher resolution, which supposedly should be much better. So let's try to compare these two different models and see how we did. First of all, as you can see, we have significantly more pixels available. That means 150% more pixels. The more pixels, the more details, the more data we get, the better we can measure, the higher sensitivity as well we have the possibility to get. So then we have the NETD value. As you can see on the right side, I didn't even bother to try to figure out what was the real number because I can't really trust any of that data, right? Then we have the aperture. On the left-hand side, you have both of them marked in the Dahua side, the 1.0 for the thermal and 1.6 for the visual. Because the visual is just as important because we want to utilize as much as that IR light as least. And if we don't have a good aperture, the image is going to get significantly darker because first of all, it's not as sensitive and we don't have a good aperture. It's like wearing very thick glasses. It's harder to see through as well. So obviously we conquered on all those three factors. The IR distance, of course we conquered that one as well. We had 30 meters, they had only 15 meters. So you have a longer range whenever you're using the IR mode. But also the I think I got them around, right? There you go, that's the right way. We could detect a human at a distance with the shortest range, that means the widest lens. We could detect the person at from 26 and over to the vehicle at 72 meters. And if you look at the competing, it's significantly lower. Also in the analytics part, we had 10 rules. You could only find 10 at the competitors. And then the ingress protection, which is very important in terms of humid areas, areas where we need to be careful with how harsh it is in terms of dust, water, and all of these things. We were also doing better. We did have fire detection, like they did as well, and smoking detection. So, what's all the lesson from all of this in the Eureka series is better technology, similar pricing. But what is the price in fact? The price of one of these cameras would be equivalent to, or even less. It would be less than some of these other very well-known brands here if you wanted them. So use a thermal camera to compete with them would not really make sense because you have a much better detection in all weather. So it's kind of like comparing a Fiat with a Ferrari, not to be prejudiced in terms of expecting them to drive just as fast, right? So this is very important to remember. The last thing I wanted to say as well about the other camera, of the thermal cameras that I was comparing for before is, remember when you can detect on a longer distance with the Dahua thermal camera, you can also install less cameras if you want to install them as a perimeter. So maybe at the end of the day, you might end up saving some money as well. So that was actually what I had for you guys. We want to make sure to enable a safer society and create a smarter living for everybody. And we also want to thank you for listening and paying attention. And now we're going to go over to some of the interesting live testing with my colleague Anton. Thank you very much.
Before we go to the live testing, I have to thank you, Farhan, for your presentation because I'm in total awe of your skills, knowledge, and professionalism. And I have to tell you one thing, dear ladies and gentlemen, because my parents used to say that all cats are gray in the dark, but are they? Really, I think that Farhan proved them wrong, and with our knowledge and our experience, we are aware that night is full of different colors to be explored, so we need to change this expression. And we need to invite our next speaker for his presentation because he's going to show us the color of the night during this product show. Farhan mentioned him before. Right now, I'm going to introduce him. Anton Samborski, Technical Support Engineer, CE, Nordic and Turkey.
Farhan. Today we make a live test. Here I have a 5 megapixel TiOC camera, and here I have a digital lux meter. I think we have about 1000 lux. And also we have our tester, our PFM 906. We in our warehouse, Dahua warehouse, and make magic. So we make a little bit dark. Okay, now it's really dark here, and now I have a 0.03 lux. Oh my god, it's very dark here. So, if you can see, we see a big difference. You can check this in our live streaming from our PFM tester. You see this image? I think it's very good reality. So, I forgot. If you have a totally darkness on the monitoring stage, you can use this built-in LED lamp. This lamp is built in the camera. So, I have a lux meter here. We have about 5 meters from the camera. And now I have 1.7 lux on my lux meter. Yeah, how you can see, the picture is quite good. So remember, we have a lot of darkness. We have a built-in lamp. Goodbye, everyone. Bye, everybody.
Anton reporting from a warehouse. We're back to our studio. Thank you very much for proving our point that our products are absolutely amazing. I would even say incomparable. Thank you very much for joining us here today, and thank you for staying with us till the very end. We do hope that you had a blast. We hope that you took many interesting tips and notes from our specialists, and we do hope and we do believe that you're going to join us during our next conference. Right now, enjoy this amazing day. If it's raining, it's raining. If it's sunny, it's sunny. We create our reality, and I hope this day is going to be perfect for you. Thank you once again, and see you next time.